Yo, I'm Yovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers post-game reaction show. I just got back to my hotel from the Golden One Center, where the Lakers lost 120 to 107 to complete the season sweep at the hands of the Sacramento Kings. LA drops to 36 and 31. They've won 12 of 18 games, but have lost twice to the Sacramento Kings in the past week. And I'm not going to bury the lead for you guys. LA got punked tonight. I don't know how else to say it, but this was another must-win game. And not only did they lose, but I think this was worse than last week's loss. And last week I called it the worst loss of the season, given they blew a 19-point lead. They got destroyed in that second quarter and were pretty much blown out the rest of the way. They tried to make it interesting in the second half, but it was never really that close. And in this game, it was closer, deeper into the game. It was a 4-point game at halftime, but then they got blown out in the third quarter. But to me, the reason this one was worse was because of the no-shows offensively from LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and D'Angelo Russell through the first three quarters, and then the team's non-existent effort defensively in transition and with their back line and second, third, and fourth rotations in terms of getting out to shooters. And the Kings made 19 threes. I have it here. They shot 19 of 41, which is 46.3%. So nearly 50% on threes in a game that the Lakers, LeBron and AD both spoke at shoot-around today and both spoke about the importance of this game. Darvin Ham spoke pregame. The Lakers had a practice yesterday. So to lead into this game, they had 2 days off. They had a practice. They had 1 day completely off rest. That was AD's birthday. Then they have a day of practice, going over film, prepping based on last week's matchup. Then they have a shoot around, and they have another opportunity to go through, again, more film and more strategy. And they just come out and lay an absolute egg. And I don't understand it. I did Spectrum on Monday, and I was asked to pick a word to describe the Lakers season. And I chose confounding. And I stand by that word. I think that word applies to their performance tonight, where, again, it's a must-win situation. This is a team directly above them in the standings. This is a team they were 2 games behind entering this game. If they had won this game, and if they had won last week, they'd be tied in the season series, and they'd potentially be tied in the standings. And the fact that they lost both games in the manner that they did, I think credit goes to Sacramento and their coaching staff, their game plan, their stars, their starters, the way that they performed. We obviously often look at things through a Lakers perspective on this show just because I'm a Lakers beat reporter. This is primarily Lakers content. But I think the Kings deserve a lot of credit. That said, I think it was pretty surprising effort from the Lakers in a game that was essentially a must-win and that they had 2 days to prep for. So I'm going to quickly run through some numbers. Rui Hachimura had 20 points, though only took 1 shot in the second half, and that came late in the fourth quarter. LeBron had 18, 13, and 9, continuing his double-digit scoring streak, but he didn't reach double digits, actually, until the fourth quarter. AD had 22 and 7. Austin Reeves led the way offensively with 28, and D'Lo had an absolute stinker with 6 points on 2 for 9 shooting. So with that out of the way, let's get into the 3 takeaways from tonight's game. Takeaway number 1 is LA's 3 leading scorers came up short offensively in a game that they desperately needed at least 2, if not all 3, to have monster performances to help this team get an important road win against a team that has had their number for 2 years now. I want to start with LeBron because he to me was the odd one, where you saw that one stretch in the fourth quarter when he finally got going. He reaches double figures, then he has a couple back-to-back dunks, and he gets downhill. And part of it was breakdowns on the Kings end where he just gets wide open back-to-back dunks. But part of it too was like, why it wasn't that happening more tonight? And he finished 6 for 16. Was 4 for 6 on the free throw line, so did get to the free throw line several times, obviously, but 5 turnovers for him to 9 assists, did ultimately move the ball well, but it was just an uncharacteristic performance from LeBron, where it felt like every time there was kind of a key stretch or a key moment, he would have an odd miss or a bad turnover, and this was I mean, it's funny saying this because he had 18, 13, and 9, but this to me was one of his worst games of the season. And this was, again, a game where the Lakers really needed him. And I know he was under the weather. He was sick. That was why he didn't speak to us last game, post game. You could hear it in his voice speaking to him at shoot around and after the game. But it still was like, it just, I don't know. It was a very uncharacteristic LeBron game. AD finished 7 of 18. He had, again, 22 and 10, but was thoroughly outplayed head to head by Domantas Sabonis, who dictated the terms of engagement. He was, I mean, when I say the Lakers got punked, it was at times AD getting punked specifically by Sabonis. And Sabonis played with a level of physicality that AD ultimately couldn't match. And this was the second time in a week that we saw that, and really the fourth time this season. And now he's 0-10 against Sabonis all time in their career matchups. So I would have liked to have seen AD take a hard foul on him, or just do something to kind of set the tone, or at least match, because there were several points in this game. Like I think of that one play late in the third where Sabonis kind of tries to drive on him, AD stops, and then he just turns, pivots, and elbows AD in the face, and it knocks AD back and scores. And I was surprised Darvin didn't get a technical on that play. Like, it was a blatant offensive foul. There's really no other way to cut it, but AD falls, he's holding his face. Lakers are upset. It was just like, I don't know what you're supposed to do there if you're AD. Like that was maybe one of the few times where like I didn't necessarily hold that against him, but there were several of those plays of times where Sabonis would catch the ball deep and just move AD with his shoulder, with his elbow, just with his frame, and he was able to draw fouls, score inside, get offensive rebounds. And I just felt like he really dominated AD tonight. And Sabonis, 17 points, 19 rebounds, 10 assists. So he gets the triple-double. So AD technically outscored him, but he doubled him on the glass, more than doubled him in the assist column. And he really controlled the game for the second time in the past week. And to me was overall the best guy on the floor. And then there was D'Lo, who went 2 for 9 on a day when an ESPN story came out, essentially detailing his resurgence with the Lakers and his journey from last summer, where he doesn't get the contract that he wants, but he's able to negotiate a player option, and then he gives up the de facto no trade clause. So he agrees basically, if the Lakers want to trade me, they can trade me. And then he goes through a rough December, gets benched. Then he suffers a tailbone injury, comes back from that, and not only plays his best basketball as a Laker, but plays some of the best basketball of his career over the last couple months. But amid all that is dealing with the trade rumors and being thrown in for DeJounte Murray or Zach LaVine or different deals. And he handles it all well for the most part. And now we're here. But there was a quote in there about D'Lo talking about his relationship with Darvin Ham and how last season he felt like he couldn't come to Ham and have honest conversations with him because of Ham's relationship with Dennis Schroeder. And Schroeder obviously had been coached by Ham previously in Atlanta, and they had a very close relationship. Was in some ways the Taurean Prince of last year's roster in terms of being the kind of the coach's darling. And ultimately that D'Lo felt like there was a cap on his relationship with Darvin, a cap on his role with the team, just given the Dennis dynamic. And that this year things have improved, and they've been able to have some difficult conversations. They've been able to go back and forth over text message and film sessions. But I think people glommed onto the content of the Dennis situation, and that was obviously a storyline last year in terms of just Dennis and some favoritism and him closing games sometimes, or the 3-guard lineups, or just Dennis's role being somewhat too large. And again, it's kind of been a continuation into this season with largely Taurean Prince, but to a lesser extent, Cam Reddish. But that was really interesting that, the way that all kind of came out and played out. And then D'Lo lays a stinker and has one of his worst games of the season. He still had 6 assists, and I felt he was finding Rui and Austin and keeping those guys going as they were hot. But 2 for 9, started 0 for 6 before he made his first shot, a big stinker. So I think I don't like it. It's a little reductive to just say it's because of this. But to me, when you look at LeBron, AD, and D'Lo combining to shoot 15 for 43, under 30% or right around 30%. Like that's, if I told you that before the game, you probably would have said the Lakers lose. And again, like Rui and Austin stepped up. They both, Rui had 20 points on 9 of 11 shooting. Austin had 28 points on 10 of 17 shooting, including 7 threes. Like those guys did about all they could offensively to try and carry the load. That's about as good as it's going to get from either one of those guys. And it really was the other three all really struggling for the first 3 quarters. Again, LeBron got going a little bit in garbage time. AD made some jumpers late, and D'Lo really just never got going. But it was disappointing from that perspective of just Lakers needed at least one of those guys to have a normal game, probably 2 of them, ideally 3 of them, and for all 3 to really have bad offensive performances. That was the game right there. Takeaway number 2 was the Lakers' defensive rotations were inexcusable tonight. And I'm talking specifically their 3-point rotations. Again, Sacramento shot 19 of 41, 46.3%. I went back on Synergy and watched all 19 makes, and there were some trends. One, a couple times early, D'Lo overhelped for no apparent reason off of Keon Ellis. He made a couple of threes. Then a lot of it was LeBron and a lesser extent. And then a lot of it was LeBron. I would say, honestly, almost half of the threes were directly related to LeBron not closing out hard, LeBron not getting around a screen, LeBron not switching when a guy was clearly trying to trigger a switch. So I mentioned LeBron's offensive struggles and him dealing with the ankle injury, him dealing with sickness. But it really, to me, what was more the defensive end, where I think you can make the case this was arguably his worst game or worst performance of the season, because we know LeBron's 39, year 21, most minutes of any NBA player in history. So on some level, his effort defensively is excusable just because he played 40 minutes tonight. He continues to carry a giant offensive load, and he's doing things at a point in his career where we've just never seen a player do these things and do them at the level that he's doing them at. But his efforts as the low man continue to fluctuate night to night. Most times they're not great, but then there are the games where they are great, and you just kind of wonder, why can't he do that more consistently, or why can't he do that at least in the bigger games or bigger moments when the Lakers need it. And tonight, to me, on paper, was that type of game. Lakers had, again, a couple days off, a couple days to plan, a practice, a shoot around, and the fact that LeBron, wasn't getting around dribble handoffs to contest Harrison Barnes, or was not really paying attention that he was the help guy on the weak side to Keegan Murray, or again, a guy calls for a switch and LeBron doesn't switch out, or he switches without the communicating with the other player. And it was just a lot of miscommunication and miscues. And it's not solely on LeBron. Rui had a couple of them. Again, D'Lo had a couple, Austin had one, or might have had one. And just some of it was tough shot making from the Kings. This is a really good 3-point shooting team. I believe they're top 5 in makes and attempts, and they burned the Lakers. And that's just how it goes sometimes, right? And especially at home. But I didn't even mention this yet. This was a back-to-back for the Kings. That was the other thing, is the Lakers came in rested, 2 days off. Kings came in playing a Bucks team, and granted, it was a blowout, so they got to rest their guys a little bit, didn't play them their normal minutes or workload. But if anyone had an excuse tonight, it was the Kings, where they were the less desperate team. They had already won the season series against the Lakers. They were up 3-0, and they came out like the team with the sense of urgency. It was a game 7, their season was on the line. I think the Lakers clearly have some limitations in terms of point of attack guys right now. Vando's out, Gabe Vincent's out, Cam Reddish was out. So there is a limitation there. I thought Spencer Dinwiddie, for as bad as he's been offensively, continues to play really high-level defense. I thought his defense against Monk and Fox was really impressive tonight, and he continues to be a plus defender for this group. Didn't score tonight, went 0 for 2, missed a big 3 at a critical part in the second half. But Aside from Spencer Dinwiddie, and I thought Max Christie also had some good minutes, played 9.5 minutes. He came in and was guarding Monk, and I thought Monk had the thing was like the Lakers were kind of successful with their game plan. With like Monk went 3 for 10, Fox went 9 for 20, so just under 50%. But like given how much he had torched them before, that's a win for the Lakers. Sabonis was only 6 for 10. And it felt like the Lakers did switch things up defensively. Last time I was very critical about their game plan. This time they mixed in some switching. They mixed in some up to touch in terms of like AD being at the level of the screen. They mixed in some 2-3 zone, which sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. When it didn't, it was ugly, and the Kings kind of figured that out, and the Lakers eventually went away from that. But like I got to give Darvin and the coaching staff credit for mixing up pitches. Like that was a big thing. LeBron talked about it. Shoot around. AD mentioned like guys have mentioned recently the need to switch up pitches defensively, and they did that. And I thought for the most part, the initial defense of like the point of attack and protecting the rim were actually fine for the most part. Like Sacramento only had 38 points in the paint. Remember last game, I think they had 78, something like that. And Fox himself had 32. So like from that perspective, the Lakers actually had some defensive progress. It was really Darvin mentioned the multiple efforts and sort of like the second action, the third action, the fourth action, and that's where the breakdowns were. Like the Lakers were fine on most of the first actions, and they were fine on and even some of the second. But once they got to like that third, fourth action, that's where you saw the breakdowns. And now look, there were some bad, like specifically again with LeBron, like there were some bad ones where it was just like Harrison Barnes brings the ball up the floor, runs like a dribble handoff with Sabonis. Sabonis pitches it back to him, and he's like wide open and just gets a three. And like that's partly on LeBron, and some of the stuff could be scheme based too. Like I we're not in the coaches meetings, we're not in the pregame meetings, so like I don't know how much of that was like, hey, if Harrison Barnes wants to shoot, like let him shoot. But Harrison Barnes made 7 of 11 threes. Keegan Murray made 5 of 10, and Keon Ellis made 3 of 5. And like that was the difference. Was even though Fox and Sabonis didn't have like these monster games, it was the role players of the Kings really stepping up and burning the Lakers with like right there. That's 15 of your 19 threes for the Kings came from Barnes, Murray, and Ellis. The defensive mistakes that they had were just, again, inexcusable. It wasn't point of attack. Fox is just burning them. It was a lot of just dribble handoff stuff, and the Kings moving the ball side to side, and eventually the Lakers got tired, or the Lakers mixed up a coverage, or again, miscommunicated. So like I felt it was more so the manner in which they made these mistakes that was discouraging for such a big game, and really shouldn't be happening in game 67 of an 82-game season. I know they've had a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of rotation changes, lineup changes, different variables that have gone against them. But this group, for the most part, this current group of the guys that they've had available have been playing now for at least a couple of weeks together, if not dating back to right before the All-Star break. So I don't know if I buy that excuse as much. Like Vando has been out since early February. Gabe's been out basically the whole season. Christian did go out right before the All-Star break, so that's been a factor. But they've now not had Christian for going on 3 weeks. And then Cam has been in and out of the lineup, but he's only played like 2 or 3 games since the All-Star break. So it's not like that's more of a factor for like a Torian or Max, and that affects their minutes a little bit. But like it's not a giant change to the rotation where I think it would have these ripple effects. So the stars missing shots, AD, LeBron missed some bunnies. AD had a couple dunk misses and whatever. Like Sabonis was bothering him, and that's one thing. The defense is the one thing you can control, and the fact that the Lakers were so bad defensively for stretches of this game, I just, to me, it was inexcusable. Takeaway number 3 is this next game against the Golden State Warriors on Saturday is a must win, or it's at least a must win if the Lakers want to avoid the number 10 seed. They're currently a game ahead of the Warriors. They're 36-31. The Warriors are 34-31. So they're 2 games up in the win column, but losing that game to the Warriors would put them down 2-1 in the season series. They still have a 4th matchup in LA later in the year. But given, I said it in my matchup rankings earlier in the week on episode 3 of Buha's Block, like The Warriors have entering, I believe, a couple days ago, had the fifth best record in the league since late January when Draymond Green, I think it was January 27th, when Draymond Green entered the starting lineup against the Lakers. And from that point, they've been playing really well. And I think they've gone 1-1 since then. So maybe they're, sixth or seventh best record in the league. But they're in that like top 6 or 7. And the fact that they're playing so well, and the Lakers have largely been playing well, but not as well as the Warriors, that is a bit of a troubling sign. And look, now Luka Doncic is dealing with a hamstring injury, and those can be tough to deal with. So we'll see what happens with Dallas and Golden State and Dallas are the two primary competitors with the Lakers in terms of seeding. But this game against the Warriors, it's going to be a similar situation now where the Lakers have 2 days off, 2 days to prepare. They're going to be off Thursday. They're going to have a practice on Friday. We'll see about shoot around on Saturday. It is an earlier game, so I doubt they shoot around. They'll probably have a walkthrough. But this is they're home. Again, rested at home. Like, this is another one where you have no excuses. I believe Draymond missed the game today. Steph's been out. Going to assume those guys are probably back against the Lakers because it's the Lakers, and that's how it goes this season. But that's a huge game. And one variable that's going to be really interesting is the Kings and the Warriors are slightly different. A popular comparison this week has been Sacramento and Denver. I think offensively there's a lot of similarities there. I do think obviously Jokic and Murray are just better versions of Fox and Sabonis, and the defense is night and day. Like there's no Aaron Gordon on the Kings. There's really no MPJ on the Kings either. No KCP. Like it's not a perfect comparison, but I do see the similarities, especially with the 2-man game and a passing big man, and just the dribble handoff stuff. And like there are some similarities with the offense, but there's also some similarities with the Kings and the Warriors, given Mike Brown came from the Warriors system and learning from Steve Kerr and helping that team win championships and implementing a lot of the 5-out stuff. And there's actually some overlap with Sabonis and Draymond Green. So I'm interested to see too, like the Lakers, how they respond in a similar way to, like, the Warriors are another team that's top 5 in 3-point makes and attempts. And I believe they're even shoot the three better than the Kings from a percentage perspective. And that's just another team that could get hot and easily drop 19 threes on you. And I mean, they have the best shooter of all time, arguably the two best shooters of all time. So it's kind of like a second chance for the Lakers to problem solve some of the things defensively. But it's also a test to me of, I'm beginning to be a little bit worried with the Lakers starting lineup. And I think it makes the most sense given the available personnel. So I don't think it's a short-term change necessarily, but I do think if you have a team that has a lot of movement and a lot of shooting and is able to space the Lakers out and force them into rotation and really force them into multiple actions, this starting group defensively, I just don't know if it's good enough. And it probably doesn't matter in certain matchups. And if you're a more ISO heavy team like a Phoenix or the Clippers, or even Boston sometimes, when maybe the bad version of Boston, the good version of Boston is spraying the ball around. But the teams that rely more on ball movement and shooting and spacing and are smart and run smart actions and run a lot of handoffs and different things, intricate sets, I do wonder if this starting group is good enough to hang with them defensively. My inclination is no. And I think we've seen them struggle a bit against Denver and against Sacramento. And those are two of the teams that I would classify as those types of offensive teams. And against Denver, the way they kept up with Denver was really their offense and just scoring it kind of turned into a track meet in terms of just like both teams were scoring a lot and the Lakers were able to keep up with them in that way. But it wasn't like the Lakers were getting all these stops and it was like this defensive slugfest. So I do wonder if when Gabe Vincent returns or Jared Vanderbilt returns, I think it would have to be Vando, not Gabe, but like as the Lakers, Cam comes back, like as the Lakers start to get some of these point of attack, defensive minded perimeter guys back. One, like how that affects the rotation just in general, like how many of those guys are playing. I think Vando's going to play, but is Gabe in the rotation? Is Cam in the rotation? How does that affect things? And then 2, specifically with the starters, if Vando can return in time, does he go back to starting, and do you move Rui to the bench and you just say, we're going to play a little bit bigger off the bench with like Rui, Spencer, and Christian or Jackson, depending on the matchup. And then, you know, Torian's probably in the rotation, but like Max or like you can kind of play with that like other perimeter guy spot. And I don't know about Gabe and where he fits into all that, but like I just wonder if the Lakers need another defender in that group. And you can't change the roster, obviously, at this point. But I don't know if it's Spence. Like again, Spencer's defense has been really good. He hasn't shot the ball well. He's moved the ball well. I think he's like fit in the offense, but he hasn't been the scorer or the creator that the Lakers envisioned him being. But I just think I don't know what the answer is. It might just be Vando swapping in for Rui. And I do think there will be matchups where the Lakers need Rui to start or to close at a minimum. And like I think Rui's their fifth best player. And I don't know if you break up Austin and D'Lo again. Like I think that's Galaxy reigning it. I think that's their third and fourth best players. I don't know. There's something with that group defensively, and like part of it is how much effort and engagement is LeBron bringing. But like looking at the other three guys, like there are just some physical limitations and some defensive limitations with a combo of Rui, Austin, and D'Lo. And if this group is not getting 30 free throws a night or taking 40 to 50 threes a night, I just don't know if the offensive is going to be at a high enough level to offset their defensive limitations. And of course, you're mixing guys in, so it's not like these guys are playing 48 minutes. But even looking at it tonight, Rui played 36 minutes. LeBron played 40. AD played 41. Austin played 37, just 2 seconds away from playing 38 or being above 37 and a half. D'Lo played 33. And then you look at the bench, basically 20 for Spencer, just under 10 for Max, 13 for Torian, just under 7 for Jackson. So like they won with a pretty tight rotation. It was technically a 9-man rotation, but only 7 guys cracked double figures in terms of minutes. And, you know, they played like more of a playoff style lineup. And there was a lot of minutes with the starters. And again, it's only certain matchups. So maybe it's more of a matchup based starting lineup thing. But I think they miss Vando, Gabe, just point of attack guys. Like another option could just be playing Max more. I've been clamoring for that for a while. I just don't see it happening. Like this would have been a nice matchup to play him more. For some reason, they went back to Torian at the 4, which that lineup was a negative. Torian was last on the team in plus minus. I thought kind of after a couple good games, had a bad game or a subpar game. And was 2 for 2, did hit a 3, but like I just 1 rebound in 13 minutes. And I don't know. I think there's still some tweaks that could happen with the rotation. I just think there's something to like the Lakers just need better defense out there and finding a bit better two-way balance. But that'll do it for today's episode. I will be back on Friday with a special guest. I have the interview lined up for tomorrow. So I think you guys will enjoy that one. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will talk to you soon.